ACC Media Day is upon us, and the tone is about to be a lot different than it was in 2024.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Locked On SMU on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for spending half an hour or so of your day with me. My name is Grayson Singleton, and we're going to get to that in just one moment. But coming up, we're also going to talk about something that I think Rhett Lashley will answer questions about, and I'm interested to see what he says and what direction he decides to go in terms of answering it. We're also going to talk about something that ACC Media Day is doing a lot better than the SEC did with their kickoff just last week. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that, because I think it's absolutely hilarious that the ACC got this right, and the SEC, oh boy, that last day was rough. But let's start with this. ACC Media Day is today. Rhett Lashley will take the podium at 12 noon. So we're actually releasing this podcast a lot earlier in the day than we usually do. We usually release it at 1 o'clock. I'm going to release this at 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning, just so we can get ahead of Rhett Lashley. And you can see what I said before Rhett Lashley took to the stage. But these are going to be my predictions. And we'll start with this. Last year, SMU was the newcomer in the conference. They were the new thing. The resurrection of SMU was in progress, and now they were joining the ACC. And the question was, how is this team, who has finally seemingly resurrected from the dead after they were executed by the NCAA, going to fare in its first year of the Power Four? Expectations were modest. People were thinking, okay, there's going to be a welcoming period where they're going to struggle against Power Four competition. Think of what Oklahoma did in the SEC. I think that would be akin to what a lot of people presumed SMU was going to be in 2024. And then lo and behold, that didn't happen. We've talked about how they ran the table in the conference, regardless of your feelings of the schedule, and played for a conference championship and made the college football playoff, which I can't really think of a jump where that would be anywhere precedented. But nevertheless, SMU did that. Fast forward to this year, this is going to be a totally different tone at ACC Media Day, because if last year's was, hey, welcome to the SEC, Coach Lashley, how do you think you're going to fare in your first year in a Power Four conference? You've got a quarterback that the nation doesn't really know about. You got a team that the nation mostly doesn't know about. And oh, by the way, you have just dug yourself out of 3 decades of virtual irrelevance because your program was dead. This year, it's going to be, how do you guys back it up? How do you keep your foot on the gas? Are you going to come in and try to step on everybody's necks? And we'll get to the other prescient question in the second segment of this one, which is going to be the schedule, if you haven't figured that out already, or if you haven't just read that right there. You remember the Hunger Games? I was thinking about this today before I recorded this show. You remember the first Hunger Games, when they had all the pageantry in the world and they introduced our 2 main protagonists to the Capitol, right? And it was a pageant, and we want to know about you, and we want to welcome you, and we're going to be nice to you, we're going to throw flowers at you and whatnot, right? And then the second movie happened after the 2 were victors, and you go back to the Capitol, and it's an entirely different tone. How did you stick your nose up at the Capitol? How do you back this up? How do you stay alive again? From underdog to how do you stay on your pedestal? Y'all remember the Hunger Games, right? That was the difference between movie 1 and movie 2. And I think SMU is going to see a similar shift in the narrative that the media throws at Coach Lashley, Kevin Jennings, Logan Parr, Alex Kilgore, Isaiah Wacobia. I think I covered the SMU contingent. That's going to be in Charlotte. That's going to be the narrative shift. Can you back it up? And it's going to come in very different ways. What do you think about your team this year? It could be phrased as you lost a lot of production on defense. 2 of your leading receivers from last year are gone. Who are you going to have step up? What the hell are you going to do at running back? There are questions aplenty and reasonable ones to ask to the SMU representation that's going to be at ACC Media Day. But it's not going to be, and the media is not going to take it easy because it's not going to be, welcome to the ACC. How do you think you're going to do? What are your expectations given that you're just now joining a Power 4 conference? No, 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 no. It is going to be, how are you planning to get back with respect to your schedule to the ACC championship game? By the way, if you think this hasn't already started, this is from the Dallas Morning News. Earlier today, I found this. One of the topics surrounding SMU is going to be this. As I find this here again. I lost it. There it is. Despite being picked as a middle-of-the-pack team in the preseason projections, the Mustangs rose to the national spotlight behind a dominant defense and quarterback Kevin Jennings, who took over as a starter a few games into the season. With Jennings and a handful of other key contributors back this fall, the Mustangs will still have to prove that they were more than a one-hit wonder. Many questioned whether SMU deserved to be in the college football playoff and whether it was challenged sufficiently in its schedule. This season, the Mustangs face a tougher slate with TCU and Baylor in non-conference play, Clemson on the road, and both Miami and Louisville at home. If that doesn't tell you that the narrative shift has already started, nothing else will. Because that I just read was in the Dallas Morning News. The newspaper, the biggest newspaper that is right in SMU's backyard. And they have already started with that. The Dallas Morning News has already started with it. And by the way, that's not to excoriate the Dallas Morning News, because that's going to be the question everybody really has. You had a cupcake schedule last year. Great. You did what you're supposed to do. How do you replace certain guys? Have these other guys gotten better? Rashard Smith is no longer there, and he was a stud. That sort of shift from, can you do it, to now, are you going to be a one-hit wonder, I think is going to be the prevailing theme at ACC Media Day for SMU. Your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter at Gray_Singleton2. We can discuss at length, if you want, about that. But by the way, subscribe to the show. Follow me on Twitter. Hit me up there. We'll talk about it. And coming up next, we're going to talk about the questions that Rhett Lashley is going to have to answer and how I would think he would answer it, even though I don't know the guy. How I would think he's going to answer it. We'll do all that coming up next on Locked On SMU. This episode is brought to you today by Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with your friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to actually be in the stands. Well, that's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you're going to be able to splurge on food, drinks, merch, whatever. Or invite another friend or two to come along with you, because Gametime makes that possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. I have seen this myself. I just bought tickets a couple weekends ago to a baseball game, and the prices the day before were cheaper than the prices they were earlier in the week. They've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee. Tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Gametime's Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. So just take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here on Locked On SMU, thank you for making us your first listen and making me part of your day. I'm Grayson Singleton. By the way, subscribe to this channel. Click the like button as well. Follow me on Twitter. There's my social media right down there. so we can interact and we can continue to grow this Locked On SMU community as we head into ACC Media Day and into the 2025 season. Okay, so we started off the show talking about the shift in the tone that is going to be presented from the media when it comes to SMU's turn at the podium. One of the prescient topics, I think, outside of whether or not the Mustangs can be more than a one-hit wonder, is going to be, what are you going to do about this really, really tough schedule? And let's be frank. The schedule last year shaped up pretty favorably for SMU. This year's, even though there are things that do shake out favorably for SMU, we've talked about it before. You don't have to go to Syracuse. You get that game at home. You get to split Clemson and Miami, road and home. There's a bye week in between that 3-week stretch of Clemson, Wake Forest, and Miami. And the schedule is pretty favorable at the end. But you have a tough non-con that features a game against Baylor and a game against TCU before you get into conference play that is markedly tougher than it was a season ago. So Rhett Lashlee is going to have to answer the questions, and I think some of the players are going to have to answer the questions too, especially the quarterback, Kevin Jennings. What do you think your team can do with this tougher schedule? Here's what I think Rhett Lashlee is going to do, because I don't think he wants to make any headlines. I think this has the potential to be a very coach speak answer. We're just going to prepare like we do every single week. There's a step up in competition. We're going to do our job. We're going to control the controllables. Anybody who's played sports before has heard that one, right? And then we're going to go out and play ball. Here's what I am intrigued to see if he goes this direction, and I would be thrilled if he did. If Rhett Lashlee goes out and portrays, I'm not going to try to put words into his mouth, but if he tries to portray some sort of bravado, that'll get me fired up. If he goes out there and says something along the lines of, yeah, we've seen the schedule, but look at what we did last year against Clemson. Yeah, we got our doors blown off by Penn State, but against Clemson, dude had to kick a 56-yard field goal to bury us. We can compete with Clemson. We can go to the East Coast and win games. We can go to the East Coast and compete. Y'all saw that second half. That was a tale of two halves. Clemson showed that they were the ones that had to survive because we kept attacking. And we're going to do that again, and we're going to attack Miami, and we're going to attack Clemson, and we're going to attack everybody else on the schedule because that's what we do. We do it regardless if we have to play Duke, Pitt, whatever. We're going to play Clemson and Miami the same way. And by the way, I know the schedule looks soft on paper, but it is the ACC, and you did get 2 ranked wins. You beat Louisville and you beat Pitt. Solid wins to me. Top 25. Team started out pretty good. So it's not as if SMU, in terms of quality wins, doesn't have skins on the table. They do. But there's a next level we have to get to, right? Because you can be knocking on the door, but eventually you have to bust down the door. And you bust down the door by winning those games against Miami and Clemson, who predictably you could say would be ranked in the top, let's just call it 18, depending on how those two start their seasons. Clemson seems to have leveled itself and found its footing in the NIL transfer portal era. And Miami just paid a boatload of money for a new quarterback. The top corner in the portal, Ethan O'Connor, comes over from Washington State. And they've got dudes. So there's one of two ways I can predictably see Rhett Lashlee going with that. I can predictably see him going the direction of Coach Beach and just saying, yeah, we're just going to control what we can control. We're going to prepare, and then we're going to go out and lay it all out and see what happens. Or he could go the resume route and say, look at what we put on film last year. And we're going to try to duplicate the same thing with a few more twists and turns that give us that win over Clemson. He's going to cite the returning talent and say, that's what we got. And come at you. And by the way, that is something that you sometimes see with younger coaches, because Rhett Lashley is 42 years old. He is still in that coaching bracket where you could see that happen. This isn't Nick Saban, even though Nick Saban's very testy. This isn't Brian Kelly. This is a dude that's still got his fastball. So I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility for him to go either way. Because some coaches want to completely avoid bulletin board material. And if you want to go super conservative to avoid that, great. I'm here for that. But if you want to continue to show and portray that your foot is on the gas and you want to start that at media day, because you could do that without providing bulletin board material for anybody. You can say we respect our opponents, but we're going to come at their neck. You could do that. It's not bulletin board material. We already talked about yesterday how everybody's going to be getting up for SMU, because SMU is going to have a target on its back, because the Titans of the ACC, the traditional ones, the Florida States, the Miamis, the Clemsons, they're going to want to put SMU in the dirt and try to quell this little upstart rebellion of this new team coming in and trying to crash the party. We already know that's going to happen. Are you going to bring the same fire to this tough schedule in year 2 in the ACC? I'm so curious. And speaking of the ACC, I'm going to compliment the conference, because I think the ACC gets disrespected a little bit, and the ACC is not the caliber conference that the SEC and the Big Ten are. But boy, did they do this one thing right, and we'll talk about it on the other side to close up shop on a Tuesday. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning for a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. You know, one of the things that, if I could give somebody some financial advice, it would be, just stay on track. It's one of the things I struggle with. Just stay on track all day, every day. And Monarch Money helps you stay on track, helps you stay on that page where you want to go towards your financial goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year with Monarch Money. One more segment here on a Tuesday edition of Locked On SMU. Remember, subscribe to this page, like this podcast, and also check us out wherever you get your podcasts as well, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts. Okay, let's compliment the ACC to close out the show today. Because if you paid any attention to SEC Media Day, you would have noticed this really weird scheduling. They put all the big ticket schools on the first 3 days. For my day job, doing radio in Oklahoma, I tiered the SEC following SEC Media Day. And in my 4th tier, I had Missouri, I had Kentucky, I had Mississippi State, and I can't remember, and I can't remember who the last one was. Arkansas. There we go. Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Kentucky as the bottom 4 teams of the SEC. Anybody realize that 3 of those teams were on the last day? And that's just wild to me. How, and look, we can figure out from about March, maybe April, which teams are going to be good, which teams are going to be the bottom feeders in the conference. Like, we know Cal probably won't be very good. We know Virginia's not going to be very good. Stanford. maybe Boston College, probably Boston College. How are you going to put them as 75% of the draw of that day? That's just a terrible idea. Well, let's see what the ACC did, because the ACC obviously was taking notice because they spread the wealth out. So Tuesday is going to be the big draw is going to be Miami and SMU. You're going to hear from Rhett Lashley. You're going to hear probably from Carson Beck as well. Wednesday, you've got Florida State. No matter how good or bad they are, Florida State's interesting. Fran Brown is on that day. Georgia Tech is on that day. Interesting team. Thursday, notice here who I have not said yet, because on Thursday is when Clemson goes. And you're going to hear from Dabo, Cade Klubnik, TJ Parker, all those dudes. Duke also is on that day. North Carolina with Bill Belichick is on that day. Props to the ACC for making day 3. By the way, SEC Media Day was 4 days, and they put the least interesting teams on day 4. But props to the ACC for having this, number 1, on 3 days, and number 2, for giving some intrigue for the last day, the getaway day. I find that absolutely impressive, that they gave us 2 coaches who we most definitely want to listen to. They gave us crabby old Bill Belichick and his girlfriend that is legitimately my age, by the way. They gave us that on the last day. There is nobody who's going to go to ACC Media Day who is going to want to leave before day 3. Because 2 of the most high-profile coaches, probably the 2 highest-profile coaches in the conference, are going on day 3. In a conference of Brian Kelly, Kalen DeBoer, Steve Sarkisian, Brent Venables, who's on probably the hottest seat in the conference. You got Billy Napier. The SEC gave us Eli Drinkwitz, Mark Stoops, Sam Pittman, who I guess some people find interesting. I don't, even though I think Sam Pittman did a good job. And Mike Elko on day 4. Cool. ACC gave us Dabo Swinney and Bill Belichick. Mad respect to you. That is well done. Because we know who the big ticket items are going to be. We know that. It doesn't come as a surprise 2 weeks before ACC Media Day who are going to be the most interesting people, who are going to be the people that everybody wants to watch. And the ACC did a very good job of spacing it out to where that the entire media, national and local, are going to want to be dialed in up until the very last minute of ACC Media Day. And I got to say, that's great schedule. That is excellent schedule, because the SEC, I'll tell you this from what I've heard, the SEC has kicked around trying to do exactly this. They've kicked this around for years. And I think it finally caught their attention this year, because in day 3, there was like 20 people in the media contingent asking questions to the 4 coaches that I just named off. But the ACC didn't need half a decade to deliberate about how to do this. You just figure it out. And that doesn't mean your 2 hottest ticket items have to go on the last day. I'm not saying that. But even if you swapped Dabo Swinney and Bill Belichick, and you put Miami and SMU on Thursday, and you made those other 2, Dabo and Bill, go on Tuesday, you may not have the same amount of intrigue on day 3, but there is intrigue, because one of them is a Miami team that just had the number 1 pick in the draft last year and then reloaded, paying an ungodly amount of money for a quarterback in the transfer portal. And then you have a team that went to the college football playoff last year. There's still some intrigue there, and you're still going to get eyeballs, and you're still going to get the media actually wanting to be there. Unlike what the SEC did. So Mad props to the ACC for that. All right. Enjoy ACC Media Day. It's going to be a lot of fun because Wednesday's show is going to be all about reacting to what we heard, and probably Thursday and Friday too. Is going to be reacting to what we heard at ACC Media Day from Rhett, from Kevin Jennings, and from the rest of the Mustangs that make the trip to Charlotte. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out the portal with Brian Smith. He's going to have all the latest on all the happenings in an ever-changing college football world, and you are going to be the most informed fan. All right, that'll do it for us today. Check us out tomorrow. Until then, have a good one. Take it easy, everybody.